up your eyes, desponding freeman. Fling to the winds your needless fears. He who unfurled your beauteous banner says it shall wave 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. What if the clouds one little moment hide the blue sky when morn appears, when the bright sun that tints them crimson rises to shine 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. Tell the great world those blessed tidings, yes, and be sure the bondman hears. Tell the oppressed of every nation, Jubilee lasts 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. Fearless foes beyond the ocean, little we heed your threatening sneers. Little will they, our children's children, when you are gone 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. Rebels at home, go hide your faces. Weep for your crimes with bitter tears. You could not bind the blessed daylight, though you should strive 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. Back to your dens, ye secret traitors, down to your own degraded spheres. Ere the first blaze of dazzling sunshine shortens your lives 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old. Haste thee along this glorious noonday, oh, for the eyes of ancient seers, oh, for the faith of him who reckons each of his days 1,000 years, 1,000 years, my own Columbia. 'Tis the glad day so long foretold. 'Tis the glad morn whose early twilight Washington saw in times of old.